Direct labor hours and machine hours only focusing for traditional, not other activity or not considered in the traditional method. Before starting a production, you need to set up the machine according to the quantity, according to your expectation. In any specific company, they are not producing only single product. So they are producing a different products. So the cost drive is very different. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to one and all. I am Natesh, lecturer in commerce, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, MYSURU, the Temple of Excellence. We are in the Unit 3, Session 1, 4th semester BCom, Costing Methods and Technique. The chapter name is Activity-Based Costing. Okay, in the last chapters which is related to operating, okay, the service related. So now especially this chapter will focus on the manufacturing sector. So while we are trying to depend on the traditional costing, so activity means in the manufacture, so there are a lot of activities going. So in this chapter we'll mainly focusing for ascertaining the complete cost for the overheads. What and all you have studied the overheads distribution in the previous semester. Today my agenda, activity based costing, you will get how what is introduction stage, how it is came, okay, and the weakness of conventional costing system, which is nothing but your traditional costing. So which is a advanced costing we are using for activity basis. There is a different manufacturer, they are taking care for the different activity. Each and every activity we will ascertain properly. So we will get to the management, will get to know the proper decisions. Okay, so they want to take a proper decision, they will get clear information about the activity, what and all is going, what cost the management can eliminate. So the concept of ABC, which is activity based costing, the concept you will get to know. And what are the characteristics of activity based costing? Because number of activities, there are different characteristics we will identify. And this costing technique is introduced or developed Kalpan and Cooper approach. Okay, so because they develop this costing technique. And moving forward for introduction, so activity based costing is a costing method, so that aim to provide a more accurate compared to traditional costing. The traditional costing only which is related to the labor and as well as material. But in case of activity, each and every activity, what and all is going in your manufacturer. So we need to calculate the what cost pooling concept which is adapted, or cost driver which is adapted in the activity costing. And the detailed understanding of the costs associated with the producing a product or providing a service, not only which is applicable the physical product what you are producing. So each and every stage of a cost we can calculate, we can identify using a activity basis costing. Okay, so the same thing which is applicable for this service also. To recognize the traditional costing system may have certain weakness, because which is focusing only for the labor, okay, which is focusing only for the material, okay, not other overheads are not at all considered. But in case of activity, so each and every overheads we are calculating which is focusing for the labor intensive or machine which is related to number of activity, what and all is going on in the manufacturing sector. So that can be a result in the inaccurate cost allocation. In case of traditional costing, so the complete cost analysis we cannot calculate here. So in case of ABC, we are getting a more clarity, because each and every manufacturing concern, they are carrying a different activity. So we need to consider. In this response, we will discuss the weakness of the conventional costing system, leading to the need of activity based. So because of there is a drawback or limitation we are finding in the traditional costing, that's what we are trying to go for the activity costing, which is giving a clear information about each and every activity, what and all is going. Okay, so moving to the weakness of conventional costing system, or you can call it as a traditional costing system. Okay, so first one, over reliance, which is a dependency. Okay, so here the value basis of allocations, only the traditional cost which is focusing only for the value basis. Okay, the conventional costing system often allocate the cost based on the single cost driver. Suppose you are placing an order, okay, how many times which is coming under the activity? So you are placing order, only you are considering for order, number of orders you are not considering. So number of orders if you consider, so which is coming under the activity. Okay, I hope you clear. Such as direct labor hours and machine hours only focusing for traditional, not other activity, or not considered in the traditional method. Inaccurate cost allocation for complex product. Inaccurate. So in the traditional costing system, so we are focusing value basis on the material and labor, but in the activity we are not comparing. So I'm just what and all the weakness we are finding in the traditional costing. Okay, the conventional costing system may be struggle to allocate cost accurately when dealing with the complex product that require multiple activity and resource. Any specific company, they are not producing only single product, so they are producing a different products, so the cost drive is very different. If your number of orders, number of machine setup, okay, so any specific product will go for the number of activity. For example, if the FMCG related or food related, okay, the grinding is required, okay, mixing combinations are required, so that is a process or activity. And after manufacturing a product, again you want to go for inspection, which is also one kind of activity. Okay, next, third one, neglecting non-value related activity. Non-value, okay, which is not only the traditional focusing on the value base. Non-value, they are the traditional costing which is not focusing. So this activity such as a product design also one kind of activity, and the customer service, because you want to get feedback, you want to solve the problem for the customer, okay, so that is also one kind of activity. But in the conventional costing or traditional costing which is not focusing. And quality control also one activity, but in the traditional which is not focusing. Okay, significantly impact on the cost but not adequate capture of conventional costing. So conventional costing which is not capturing for all the activity, but all the activity is focusing on only in the activity based costing. Okay, so next one, inadequate consideration of cost driver. Cost driver means what? The number of, for example, order. If you say order which is only for the drive, so the cost driver means what? The number of orders, number of labor hours. Like this we can number of setup, number of placing, number of inspection, which is coming under the cost driver. But in the traditional costing which is not focusing for the cost drivers, conventional costing system typically use single product driver, only single product they are focusing, okay, to allocate the overheads. Overheads we know which what and all the direct material which is going for the prime, okay, so you know the concept like the distribution of overheads you have studied. So here the allocation of overheads, either it is selling and distribution or maintenance related, what and all, which is very important. The lack of transparency and understanding is very important. But in case traditional costing, the transparency will be not there. So that's what which is very important. Okay, so the conventional costing system often provide limited visibility into the cost structure. Limited only, not everything we cannot show in the traditional costing. But in case of activity, so we will get each and every activity information, so which is a transparent. So making challenging to identify the true driver of the cost. So if you're talking related to the machine, the number of installation, okay, number of machine hours, so which is a number of, we are saying, so which is a cost driver. In case of traditional, we won't specify the perfect cost driver. And moving to the concept of activity based costing, now we will get more clarity about the activity based costing. The first one, cost driver and activity, because in the manufacturing concern or any product basis which is not at all focusing only for product, which is focusing a batch, which is focusing a product line, so which is carried by the individual company, so each and every activity they are considering here. So that's what the cost driver is, actually how you are trying to go for measuring. Okay, the ABC identified and classified the activity based on their cost driver. So number of orders, number of inspection, number of machine install, number of machine setup. So everything which is coming under the cost driver. So which can include factors like a machine setup. Before starting a production, you need to set up the machine according to the quantity, according to your expectation. Okay, the product complexity, because the each and every product are unique, right? So there are different activity, which is few activity will be common, okay, few activity which is not common for producing any final product. So what and all is involved is very important. And the customer order, even the customer order also treated is one kind of activity, and the product design also considered for activity. Okay, so inspection after completion we need to check. So that is, for example, the purchase department, what they are doing, they are trying to place an order. So the order is one. Okay, after placing, the invoice generation, that is also verified, one kind of activity. So after receiving a product, that is also they want to go for inspection. So that is also one kind of activity. Moving further, next one, cost pool. So each and every activity, once you identify what you are charging the cost, okay. So in ABC, the costs are grouped into cost pool based on the activity they support, what and all you are expecting as support or facility. So everything will be considered for activity. So each cost pool represent for specific activity and group related activity, because to perform one specific function or preparing one product or producing one product, what and all are connected, how much you are charging, that is coming under the cost pool. And next, cost allocation. So the cost allocation properly we will get more clarity using a activity based costing. ABC allocate cost from the cost pool in the individual product. Each and every product are unique, so we need to calculate based on that their activity. And service, what and all the service in involved for producing a product, and other cost are objective based on their consumption of activity. So each and every till the production to which is reaching for the consumption, what function, what service are involved. So the allocation properly we will get. And the multiple cost driver, the same product, if it's holding for the multiple cost driver applicable, means we need to find out using a activity cost. Unlike conventional costing system that typically rely on the single cost driver, either you are using a labor cost or material cost, single cost driver is using. Okay, but ABC recognize that multiple cost driver may be influence the consumption to resource for a different activity. Assume this is your product. So to produce this product, what and all is involved? The machine is involved, order placing is involved, product design is involved. Okay, the inspection part is involved. So now what and for example, inspection means the number of inspection. Okay, so order, the number of orders. Okay, so like this we need to, the machine related, how many times you are set up your machine. So that is also one kind. Okay, and implementation of challenge. So in the traditional costing, which is very simple and easy to adapt, but activity basis which is quite complicated. So because the process are very lengthy. So while ABC can provide valuable insight and implement, it can be a challenging. So every company, okay, so if they are expecting to get more clarity about the cost, what and all is incurred for specific product or service, so of course they want to implement the ABC costing. Now moving to the characteristic of the ABC activity based costing, the first one, cost allocation based on the activity, the same thing what you have learned. Okay, the ABC focus on the identification and allocation cost based on the activity performed within the organization, what and all the activity to produce a product or to offer a service, what activity are involved. So next one, the multiple cost pooling. So in case of traditional costing, we are using only one cost pool, okay, cost driver. But in case of ABC, there are multiple cost, okay, from the design, product design, how much your costs are pulled, okay, from the machine setup, how much cost is pulled. So everything. ABC use multiple costs for accumulate the cost associated with the different activity. So we will find out if the value is added for the product, of course, which is you can expect more sales from the customer. If the unnecessary value, if you try to avoid, the management also can reduce the cost cutting, okay, they are trying to reduce the cost because which is not adding any value for the product. The cost driver can be based on the various factors such as the time, number of times you place order, and the value, how much quantity you're placing an order. Okay, if you take an example for order, and the complexity, what is the complexity level, you can check here, and the usage part, okay, the frequently, so how many times the same product you are expecting a demand from the market. So of course at the time of placing an order, you are trying to purchase a bulk quantity. So if it is the raw material cost, based on the raw material cost we are placing order. So number of times if it is increasing, the transportation cost also very important, the carrying cost is important, and storing cost is important. So unnecessary cost you need to think which is really adding any value for the product or not adding any value for the product. So not adding any value for the product, so elimination, the cost is eliminated. Identification of non-value added activity, because you need to consider here the product value is not added because of non-value added. Non-value means which is not added for the any product or service. Okay, if it is added, the customers you can expect more consumers. Which are activity that do not directly contribute to the production or delivery of product or service. If every customers are looking something from the company or what and all the company are producing, if the competitors are producing same product, if your value is added, of course you are trying to compete with your competitors. We are focusing only for value added, which is not adding any value, so we need to avoid, eliminate. So the focus of cost management, so very important, the management, they are trying to manage the cost what and all incurred for the production. Okay, so the ABC provide insight into the cost behavior and the cost driver, enabling organizations to manage cost more effectively. So there's unnecessary cost which is not connecting to your productivity, try to avoid. So that's what the cost management, the different overheads what and all is incurred for the production. So the easily we can take the steps or easily we can take the decisions. Enhance product and customer profitability analysis. So using a ABC analysis, we are trying to focus for adding a more value for the product. Okay, so which is adding more value for the product. So we are avoid which is not adding any value for the product. ABC enable more accurate assessment of product and customer profitability. Even the customer is a very important. You need to give more value. If you need to add more value for the product, okay, how you can eliminate which is not at all adding the value for the product. So easily we can find out the profitability. Moving forward, this approach is developed Kalpan and Cooper's approach. Okay, this one is approach Kalpan. So here activity based costing is an accounting method that aim to allocate indirect cost, which is nothing but your overheads. Okay, either which is an administration overheads or selling and distribution overheads or maintenance related. So what and all overheads which is an indirect cost to produce product or service based on the activity involved in their production and delivery. Okay, what and all. Now I think you are well familiar doing the problem which is related to overheads distribution, the primary distribution and secondary distribution. It was developed by the Robert Kalpan and Robin Cooper in the year of 1980s as an alternative to the traditional costing method, because the traditional costing we are finding a drawback and limitation. But while you are approaching for we are trying to adapt for ABC, we are getting more accurate result that primarily rely on the direct labors and the machine hours for the cost allocation, only the traditional costing focusing only for direct labors and machine hour, which is not focusing for other activity. Now activity based, which is focusing each and every activity equally. So ABC, Kalpan and Cooper approach, the first one cost pool. In the traditional, when you are comparing only single cost pool, but in case of ABC, the multiple cost pool, we are pooling from the different activity. So the cost pool can be include activity like a setup cost and the machine handling cost and the inspection cost, the machine maintenance cost, okay, and other order placing cost, because each and every product. So if any final product are producing with the help of coordination for the different department, different activity, so we need to pool according to the cost. Okay, and next one, cost driver. When you are talking related to traditional costing, which is only for one cost driver, it's leading. But in case of activity based, the cost driver are a factor that cause cost to be incurred in the activity or process, what and all you carried. They determine the relationship between the activity and cost. Okay, the cost driver can be classified into majorly two types. The first one, transactional driver, the transaction part. So which is only for applicable for transaction, how many times, how many orders, like this. For example, the number of purchasing order process can be the transaction driver for setup cost. Okay, and moving to next, duration. What duration, what frequency you are taking to place an order. For example, machine hours, which is always based on the duration, can be duration driver for machine maintenance cost. How frequently you are maintaining your machinery. Okay, so which is related to completely the duration part. Okay, now moving for the third one, resource consumption hierarchy. So any specific product or offering a service, unless you're not following the resource, okay, so what and all is involved, labor is involved, the machine is involved, the man is involved, okay, technical, money, capital, everything is equally important. So Kalpan and Cooper introduced the concept of resource consumption hierarchy, which is complete resource which is connected to your production to reach end consumption. To identify the relationship between the activity and resource is very important. So the hierarchy consists of 4 levels. The first one, unit level. So each and every product, we need to consider individual units. Okay, so what and all the machine hours, we will divide number of units produced, so we will get from that. Next one, batch. Each batch, how many units you are producing, that the batch wise also we are trying to. And the product level activity. So particular company, they are not producing only one product, they want to follow product line or product width or product length. So which is going for the product level also we need to consider. And the facility level, even the majority of the product, for example, ice cream company, after getting, so they want to properly store using a refrigerator, freezer. So the facility, what and all is required. So that is also very, very important. And next one, allocation process. So we are allocating overheads based on the primary and secondary distribution. So obviously the allocation process is a ABC involve assigning a cost from the cost pool to specific cost objective. Each and every activity we are treating as unequal. So we need to pull from the each and every activity we are pulling a cost, such as a product, service, or customer, using appropriate cost driver. So for example, the customer, when we are taking an example, so how many customer, okay, how many repeater nature they are purchasing a product, what is the usage rate, so we are finding. Keep on watch for next section. Thank you.